Flack math! Give me some math and I'll give you some flack. Flack math!
Okay, so while we're waiting, you guys can write this down. This is the addition subtraction rule for equations.
Paper out, guys. You have notebooks out. I don't see anything happening.
I'm picking up my colored pencil.
Do you have a notebook? Paper? Get something.
Eddie,
We
what
don't
about
really
paper?
take notes. I mean, we do, but like
Addition
not.
subtraction rule for equations. Here's the deal. You can basically add the same thing to both sides of an equation. It doesn't change it. Okay, so write this down. The same number can be added or subtracted. So I'm going to say, I'm going to just do it all in one. The book has two different things, but I'm going to say added or subtracted. Both sides of an equation without changing the solution to the equation. Okay, so this allows us to solve equations. So here's an example. Now, I know you guys know the answer to this, but we're going to use the addition subtraction rule to solve for it. Okay, so the same thing can be added to both sides. Okay, so if I add 3 to both sides, so think about it like a balanced scale here, right? Here's a balanced scale. If I had x minus 3, if I add 3 to both sides, what's going to happen? It's still going to be the same weight. If you add 3 to both sides of the equation, it's still going to be balanced. Okay? Well, what happens if you subtract 3 and then add 3? Well, that cancels itself out and you're back at x. Okay? So your goal, remember, when you're solving an equation is to figure out what x equals. So if you can get x by itself in an equation by just manipulating it, you can do whatever you want to an equation as long as you do the same thing to both sides. So how do you get back to x if we just subtracted 3? Well, to get back to x, you add 3, okay? So to get rid of stuff in an equation, you do the opposite operation. So you have to go backwards, okay? All right, let's try another example. Here is example 2. N plus 3 equals 7. Well, I know you guys know how to do this. You guys know how to figure out what n is, right?
Yep.
You can just get n by itself. How do you get n by itself? How do you get rid of that 3? What do you do?
Get rid of it. Divide.
So
You would divide.
what you do is you take a 3, subtract it from 3 and from
Yep.
7.
Right.
And
So we are at n, right? And then we added 3 to get back to n, you subtract 3. You're doing the opposite operation. So whatever you do to one side, remember you just took weight off of the left side of your equation. So now you have to take the same amount of weight off the other side. Okay, when you get there, you get n. 7 minus 3 is 4. Well, you already knew that because you knew that 4 plus 3 equals 7. Okay, so you guys have been doing these equations for a while. This is just you writing them down in a different way. So this is you solving these equations with algebra. Instead of just figuring out in your head, okay, well, to find the missing number in an addition problem, you subtract. Well, that's true, but now you can follow the rules to algebra, and algebra is going to make equations like this a lot simpler to solve. Okay, so let's try another example. Example 3. Y plus 3/4, fraction, equals 9/11. Okay, well, how do you get rid of 3/4?
You do the opposite equation and
Right.
me by 3/4.
Right, so to get rid of stuff, so your goal is to get y by itself. So it's this guy, he's hanging out with y. To get rid of him, you do the opposite of his superpower. His superpower is addition. So to get rid of him, you have to subtract it. Whatever you do to one side, make sure you do to the other. You should get in the habit of doing this. Be a little bit OCD with this. So whatever you do to one side, make sure it looks the same on the other side. Okay? All right. Does somebody have a hand raised?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, mine has two big brain. So it looks like I can.
Okay. All right. So how do you subtract fractions? What do you need?
You need to find the common denominator.
All right. So it looks like 44. So how do you figure out this numerator? What do you multiply by?
4.
4. 11 times 4 is 44. So 9 times 4 is 36. Times 11 times 11. So negative or minus 33. Right? So now we can subtract. What's 36 minus 33?
33. 36 minus 33.
So 3/44. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
So we just fractionated it a little bit, but that's all right. Let's see if you guys can do this one on your own. Here's another one. This is the last example of the lesson. Here we go. Solve z minus 3/5 equals 2/10. Solve this equation. Go. Question?
No.
All right, solve that.
I got it.
Already?
Yeah.
What is it? I got. What does it say? That's what I got.
Holler it out.
6/10.
No.
3/5.
8/10.
All right, I think I got 8/10 too. So how do you get rid of 3/5?
You add. Oh, go ahead, David. Okay.
Right, so whatever you do to one side, do to the other. No exceptions. So now you're still left with just z on this side, which is what you wanted, but now you have to clean this up. So you need a common denominator, right? Common denominator is 10, so you just have to double the denominator, so double the numerator. Then when you add 2/10 and 6/10, you get 8/10. All right, does that feel all right? You guys think you can handle the addition subtraction rule for equations? You can always check your work. Make sure you check your work. Look up here. You plug in 13 for x. 13 minus 3 is 10. Check. It works. Plug in 4 for n. 4 plus 3 is 7. Yep, it is 7. Makes sense. Okay. All right. We ready to move on to lesson 40?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about reciprocals, and then we're also going to talk about the multiplication rule and division rule for equations. Okay, so reciprocals are a pretty easy concept. All you're doing is flipping it upside down. Reciprocal of 2/5. What's the reciprocal of 2/5?
Shout it out.
5.
5
2.
2s. 5.
Yeah,
5/2.
halves. 5/2. Okay, good. So that's good. So what happens when you just have like, what's the reciprocal of 1/4?
4 once.
4 once,
So,
For first.
4 wholes. So what's an easier way to say 4 over 1?
4.
Just 4. Good. All right. So what's the reciprocal of 7?
7. No,
1 over 7.
1 over 7. Because remember, you have nothing to flip. So make it a fraction and then you can flip it. So 1/7. Good. These are reciprocals. You guys know how to do this. Copy dot flop. When you multiply fractions, you do that. Okay. So what's the only number that, oh, I guess, did we talk about this? Maybe not. So 0 doesn't have a reciprocal. Because
Yeah, it does.
you cannot divide by 0. No bueno. Okay.
No.
This is undefined. You can't multiply 0 by anything to get 1. It's impossible. So the answer is undefined. So 0 is the only number that doesn't have a reciprocal. Okay. Now, here's the deal. Whenever you multiply a reciprocal, a fraction by its reciprocal, what do you get? What do you get? 2/5 times 5/2. What do you get?
0. What else?
Wait.
1, no. Yes, 1. Yes, 1.
1.
Yeah, just
4
1.
over 5.
Because you can either get 10 over 10, right? Which is equal to 1, or you can cross reduce. You get 1 over 1, which is just 1. So whenever you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, you get 1. And that will help us when we're trying to solve equations. Let me show you. Let's look at, first of all, let's do the multiplication rule. And we're going to say division rule. Multiplication and division rule for equations. Okay. So both sides of an equation can be multiplied or divided by the same number without changing the solution.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, but what's the only exception? What can't you divide by? What can't you can't divide by 0. So that's the only exception to this rule, okay? All right, so let's look at an example. Let's look at example 1. Now, I know that you know that I know that you know that x equals 3, right? Because 4 times 3 is 12. But let's solve this equation with our new tool, the multiplication division rule. So how do you get x by itself? What is 4 doing to the x? What operation is that? Multiplication. So to get rid of it, you do the opposite, right? If you multiply something by 4 and then divide by 4, then you're right where you started, right at x. So whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So x equals 12 divided by 4, which is 3. Okay. Now I know that you know that I know that you knew at one point that I know that you knew that x equals 3. All right. But this is solving this easy equation with our new tool. Now there's another way to do this, believe it or not. 4x equals 12. You could do something else to get rid of that 4. If you multiplied by 1/4, what's 1/4 times 4?
4 over 4.
Yeah, which is just 1x, right?
Yeah.
And then what's 12 times 1/4? 12 over 4, which is 3. So x equals 3. Now, this seemed a little bit weird. I'd rather do it this red way than this green way. But this is an option. If you have a fraction here then it might be easier just to multiply by the reciprocal. That's another way to cancel that number that's multiplying by the x. Okay. All right, let's try another one. Let's try this example. 2/3 y equals 1/5. What's that 2/3 doing to the y? It looks a little different, but it's the same as the last problem. What's that 2/3 doing to the y?
Multiplying.
Multiplying it. How do you get rid of multiplication?
Reciprocal.
Yeah, or you could multiply by the reciprocal or divide, but look what happens. When you divide fractions, you copy dot flop, right? So you're flopping 2/3 to 3/2. Okay, so the shortcut would have been to just multiply by the reciprocal right away. So if you multiply by the reciprocal, 3/2, these cancel, and you're left with y equals 3/10. But you can do this way if you want. So y equals 3/10 here as well. Either way, you'll get to the same answer. Can you see that over here, or is something covering it?
No, we can.
Okay.
No, the left hands are covering it.
Okay, so does this make sense, guys? So
Yeah.
either way, if you don't want to multiply by the reciprocal, you don't have to, but eventually you will multiply by the reciprocal. But this could be in a format that's easier for you to understand. To get rid of something being multiplied, you divide it. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. Okay? All right, we're going to try a couple more examples, and then I'm going to let you guys get to work. Let's look at example 3. I want to solve this equation. Okay, now this time, what is that 3 doing?
Dividing.
Dividing. How do you get rid of division?
Multiply.
Multiply. You have to go backwards. So if you divided something, to get rid of it, you have to go backwards. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. So far, so good?
So m equals what?
M equals
equals what?
18. See how we did that?
Yeah.
Now, this is stuff that you guys already knew. This is just a different way to solve these problems. We're using algebra. We're using our new tools, the division rule and the multiplication rule. Okay? So m divided by 3, to get back to m, you multiply by 3. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay? All right, I'm going to do one more example, and then we will, I'm going to summarize the rules that we have, okay? Here's example, let's do 2 more examples. Example 4. Here's what it says. 4x equals 3. How do you get x by itself?
You divide.
Divide by what?
3 divided by 4.
Yeah, divide both sides by 4. That's how you get rid of the 4, right? So guess what? You're done. That's it. You don't have to do any more. X equals 3/4. You can check to see if you can reduce it. You can't reduce it, so you're done. X equals 3 divided by 4. What's 3 divided by 4? 3 divided by 4. That's the best answer. You can change it to a decimal if you want, but that's good enough. 3/4, you're done. Okay? All right, I've got one more example. Let's see if you guys can do this on your own. Ready? Here's example 5. N times 0.04 equals 28. Solve for n. Ready, go. You're gonna have to use your dividing by decimals tools. Somebody say something?
No. Is it 700?
It is 700. Nice one.
Let's go. We found it.
Eh.
I did that.
So you're dividing by 0.04. Divide by 0.04. Remember, you can't divide by a decimal. So you have to change that decimal to a whole number. And whatever you do to that, you have to do to this. So this, you have to add 2 zeros. 2,800 divided by 4 is 700. Okay. All right. You guys know that you just have a few more days, and then you're allowed to use a calculator next semester. So you're almost there. So, and these are good on a calculator because your mind will play tricks on you. When you're divided by decimals, your mind plays tricks on you. So if you're not going to write it out, if you're going to try to do it in your head, be careful. I would write it out. You can still write it out like this, 0.04 into 28. We'll move that decimal 2 places. So move this decimal 2 places, add a couple zeros. Okay, it goes in 7 times, and then with 2 more zeros, you're done. Okay. All right, so here's the rules, guys. These are 3 fundamentals of solving equations. Write these down. Fundamentals of solving equations. Your main goal, get the variable or letter, get variable by itself. That's your main goal. You're trying to get rid of everything that's hanging out with the variable. Okay? So how do you eliminate stuff? You eliminate stuff by performing opposite operations. So think of it as superpowers, and to get rid of it, you have to do their biggest weakness. So someone who has a superpower of multiplication, to get rid of it, use division on it. Okay? And then the last thing is your golden rule. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So if you add something to one side, add it to the other. Okay, keep it even. Got to cover your tracks. If you eliminate something, you have to get rid of the same amount on the other side so nobody notices. Okay. Does this feel okay, guys? You guys feel like you can solve these equations with these new tools? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. All right. Next lesson. Oh, we're done, aren't we? Next lesson is 41. We're going to do that on Thursday. So here's what I'd love for you to do. You've got almost a half an hour. So you guys can start on these problems. The best way to understand these is to practice right away. Right while it's fresh on your brain, practice these concepts. So you can either do lesson 39 or 40. And then you can keep track of how many problems you do in class. And you can let Mrs. Powell know, and she can tell me how many problems you do. And I'm going to give you points towards every 10 problems. So are you okay with that, Mrs. Powell?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so you could just write down their name, or you can email me this if you want, if it's easier.
Okay.
Just how many problems they do, and then I'm going to give them a Flack attack point for every 10 problems they do. Okay. Sound good, guys? Thumbs up. All right. Okay. So, you guys, most of you took your test. If you haven't uploaded your test yet, do it. Duh. It's late already, so do it as soon as you can. And then you can do test corrections. So if you want to do a Zoom call with me, I'm going to give you half points back, up to 15 points back. Okay. So if you got a 70 on your test, you can end up with an 85. You can get 15 points back. Okay. So message me if you want to do test corrections with me. You can do them on your own, but I'll only give up to 10 points back. Okay. Good, good.
And where do they find their problems?
So in their books, do you guys have books?
You guys have the book?
I forgot to print out the worksheets.
I do have some extra books in the cabinets.
In the cabinet.
So I think at the top left one are my algebra or my blue pre-algebra books, but so they're welcome to use that if they wipe it down when they're done.
Okay.
So, all right, you guys good?
Yeah.
Good job today. Good to see you. We'll see you again on Thursday, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, see you later.
Bye. Free algebra.
Flack math. Give me some math and I'll give you some flack. Flack math.